And Lady Everly, when he arrived in front of them, he bobbed his head. "Yeah, long time no see. Did you come to get laid?" she asked with a wild, animalistic grin on her face. She gestured with her chin for him to sit down, but Climb remained expressionless and shook his head. This could be called Gagarin's usual greeting, but she wasn't kidding. If Climb responded affirmatively, even as a joke, she would probably drag him up to a private room on the second floor. He would have no way to resist her overwhelming muscles. She endlessly professed her fondness for relishing fresh cherries. That was the kind of person she was. In contrast, Everly faced straight ahead, unmoving. Climb couldn't tell where her eyes were focused under the mask. "No, Lady Aindra asked me to come." Our leader?" "Yes, I have a message for you. She says it seems like you'll be moving very soon. Details will come when you get back, but she wants you to be combat ready at any time." Whoa. "Well, I am sorry you had to come all the way here for that." Gagarin laughed heartily. Climb remembered he had something else he needed to tell her. "Today I was blessed with the opportunity to receive training from Captain Stronoff. He praised that move you taught me, the overhead strike. Gagarin had taught him that move in S backyard." She broke into a smile as if Gazef's praise had been for her. "Oh, that? Nicely done. But I know. I want to be satisfied with this. I'll train even harder." "Well, that too. Assume that move 1T work out, and come up with the next thing to chain it to." Curiously, or perhaps because it was just common sense among top-class warriors, Gagarin's advice bore a strong resemblance to Gazef's. Climb was surprised at the coincidence, but Gagarin must have read his reaction as something else. "Of course, the downward slice I showed you has no point if you don't use it with the intent to make it a one-hit kill." She laughed. "Really, the correct answer is to have countless moves and choose the appropriate ones as you go, but you can do that." She remarked that he lacked innate talent, so make a chain of 3 moves. Even if your opponent blocks them, they can transition into a counterattack. Climb nodded. "Well, there will be times it 1T work, like when your opponent is a monster with lots of arms, but you'll be fine against a human. If they learn your pattern, you're doomed, but for first-time opponents, it'll be pretty effective. Make a chain so you can push. Got it." Climb nodded emphatically. That morning he'd only been able to penetrate Gazef's space as far as he had when he used that move. Except for that, the captain had seen through him instantly and left Climb defending against counterattacks. But did Climb lose confidence because of it? No. Did he despair? No, just the opposite. An ordinary person had come that close to the strongest warrior in the kingdom? No, in the entire region. He knew it was because his opponent had been holding back, but for Climb, going down his pitch-black path devoid of light, that was plenty encouraging. His hard work wasn't all for nothing. Remembering that, he realized what Gagarin was trying to say. He wasn't sure he would be able to devise a chain attack. Still, the passion to do it bubbled up inside him. He wanted to get strong. He wanted to be worth just a little more of his superior's effort next time he sparred with the captain of the Royal Select. "Oh yeah, you were asking Everly for something too, right? Magic training, was it?" "Yes." Climb glanced at Everly. When he asked her, she scoffed at him from under her mask. The conversation had ended there. Since nothing had changed, if he brought it up again, he would probably get the same response. But kid, her voice was hard to hear. Even ignoring the effect of the mask, the tone of her voice was very mysterious. Despite the mask, as long as it wasn't too thick, it should have been possible to tell what sort of voice she had. But Everly's voice didn't betray her age or her emotions. The sole, barely discernible trait was that it belonged to a woman. She sounded both old and young. Her voice was detached and flat. It was probably because the mask she wore was a magic item. But why did she need to go to such lengths to hide her voice? You don't have the aptitude. Pour your efforts into something else. She made the dismissive declaration as though that was all she had to say to him. But Climb knew that perfectly well. He had no magic aptitude, not only magic, in fact. No matter how many times he swung his sword, no matter how many times his blisters bled, popped, and healed over, he hadn't been able to reach the realm he aspired to. Someone born with talent could scale that wall easily. But for Climb, it was an unapproachable precipice. That didn't mean he could neglect his efforts to overcome it. Without aptitude, all he could do was work hard and trust that he would be able to advance even one step forward. You don't seem convinced. A Apparently noticing Clime's emotions beneath his expressionless facade, Everly continued. Gifted people show it from the beginning. Some people say that ability is like a flower before it has bloomed, and that everyone has the potential. But if you ask me, that is nothing but wishful thinking. It has something inferior people say to console themselves, but the leader of the 13 heroes was like that too. The leader of the 13 heroes legends said that he was originally an ordinary person. He'd been weaker than everyone, but as he continued fighting with his sword and getting injured along the way, he became a hero stronger than anyone had ever seen. He had potential that endlessly grew. He already had it. It just hadn't bloomed yet, but you're different. You work hard and stay the same. That's right. Natural aptitude is unmistakable. There are those who have it, and those who don't, so I won't say to give up, but just know where you stand. Everly's harsh words invoked a moment of silence, and it was Everly who broke it again. Gazov Stronov is a good example. That's a man with potential. Climb, do you really think you can close the gap in your abilities with hard work? His words wouldn't come out. He had been reminded today during his training bout with Gazov that it was a distance he couldn't cross. Well, it's probably unfair of me to compare you to him. I don't know anyone equal to him with a sword besides the 13 heroes, perhaps. Gagarin here is pretty skilled, but she can beat Gazov. Don't be ridiculous. That guy's already got 1 foot in the realm of heroes. People say you're a heroine yourself, although there's a question mark with regards to your gender. Everly faltered for just a moment, but Gagarin smiled and said, "Hey now, Everly. Isn't the definition of a hero a monster with extraordinary power who has transcended human limits? I don't deny it. In that case, I can set foot in the heroic realm. I am a human. Still, you have a gift. You're different from a human like Climb who has none. Climb, you're not meant to spend your time chasing after the stars." Climb knew full well he was lacking, but this constant confrontation with the fact drove it home. Still, that didn't mean he intended to change his way of life. I exist for the princess, to do her will. Everly must have sensed something martyr-like about him. She clicked her tongue from under her mask. You probably won't quit just because I said all that. You're right. What a fool you are, truly a fool. She shook her head and exclaimed how she couldn't understand. Those with dreams that can be attained destroy themselves, you know. I said it before, but you need to know your place. I understand, but you don't feel like listening. You're a man who is beyond foolish. You are the type who dies an early death. Is there anyone who would cry if you were killed? What is this, Everly? Are you harassing him because you're worried about him? At Gagarin's words, Everly bitterly slumped her shoulders. She turned to face Gagarin, reached out with a gloved hand to grab her collar, and shouted, "Shut up for a second, meathead." But it is true, isn't it? Gagarin was unfazed, even while held by her collar. Her remark left Everly speechless. The robed woman sank into her chair, and to change the subject, directed her frustration at Climb. First, learn about magic. If you increase your knowledge, you'll be able to understand the intentions of an opponent who uses magic. That way you can take more appropriate measures against them. Aren't there too many types of magic for him to study them all? No, there are relatively few core spells that casters rely on. He can start with those. Everly added dismissively that if he couldn't do that much, he should just give up. Besides, as long as he learns up to tier 3, he should have no problem. Hey Everly, they say there are spells that go up to tier 10, but no one can use them, right? So how do we know about them? Everly acted like a teacher instructing her students. She did something beneath her robe. Suddenly, Climb felt all the sounds around them grow distant, as if their table had been placed inside a bubble. Don't panic. I just used a trifling item. He wasn't sure how wary of surrounding ears she had to be to use the item, but Climb sat up straighter when he realized the answer to Gagarin's question was important enough to take precautions. In one of the myths, there are beings known as the 8 Kings of Avarice. It is said that they stole the powers of the gods and ruled this world with their enormous strength. Climb knew the story of the 8 Kings of Avarice. It wasn't a popular fairy tale. But people who possessed a certain degree of knowledge knew the story. To summarize, the 8 Kings of Avarice appeared 500 years ago. They were described as taller than the sky and dragon-like. They obliterated a country in the blink of an eye and conquered the world with their overwhelming power. They were unaccountably greedy, however, and fought because they coveted one another's possessions. At the end of the story, they all died. It was only natural that a tale like that would be unpopular, but opinions split on whether it was a fairy tale or something else. Climb thought it was rather embellished, but among adventurers, some believed it depicted actual beings, those more powerful than any that existed in the present day. They pointed to a city said to exist far away to the south, in the desert. It had supposedly been built by the 8 kings of avarice to serve as their capital when they ruled the continent. While Climb stewed in his own thoughts, Everly continued. It is believed the 8 kings of avarice possessed countless powerful items. Among them was a grimoire known as the Nameless Spellbook. That is your answer? Huh, you mean it was all written down in that book? Indeed. All the spells are supposedly listed in that unimaginably powerful magic item left behind by the legendary kings. Rumor has it that every new spell created is listed automatically, perhaps through some magic. Climb knew the story of the 8 kings of avarice, but he had never heard about this book before. He vaguely realized what a rare piece of knowledge this was and focused again on listening. That is how we can be certain tier 10 spells exist. Of course, few know even this much that the Nameless Spellbook is real. Climb gulped. Have you ever tried to find it? The Nameless Spellbook. He asked this because these two stood at the pinnacle of adventurers. Everly snorted as if to say, "Don't be absurd. HMPH. According to someone who laid eyes on it, it is protected by such a strong magic charm that no one but its rightful owner can touch it. It reportedly has power equal to an entire world, but that just means it is equally dangerous. I know my place, so I have no intention of coveting that sort of item and dying a foolish death like the 8 kings of avarice. You say that even knowing the leader of your team is famous for owning a weapon that belonged to one of the 13 heroes. It is supposedly on a whole other level, that book. Well, it is second-hand information from someone who saw it, so I don't really know the details. Aren't we off topic? Anyhow, that is the answer. Gagarin got it. After that, Everly seemed to hesitate a bit. This was a rare occurrence. She turned to Climb. Climb, don't do anything foolish like giving up your humanity just because you want power. Giving up my humanity, you mean like demons in the stories? That or becoming undead or a magic being. A normal human can do those things. Yet most people who turn undead end up warping their minds. They're passionate about their ideals, so they pursue that route to realize their desires. But the physical changes strain their mind too much, and they transform into something horrific. No emotion was visible behind the mask, but Everly's voice was clearly tinged with pity. Watching her adopt an apparent faraway gaze, Gagarin spoke in a terrifically cheery voice. Plus, if the princess woke up and Climb was an ogre, she'd go into shock. Everly must have understood the feelings driving Gagarin's remark. Her voice returned to its previous inscrutable state. Well, that's one thing you could do. Using transformation magic, you could change temporarily. In all seriousness, that is an option. For increasing physical ability, I think I'll pass. It is effective for purely physical enhancement. Humans don't have a terrible amount of ability to start with, you know. Given the same talent, starting from better basic attributes would naturally give you an advantage. That was obvious. At the same skill level, the one with better physical ability would have the edge. Actually, most of the 13 heroes hailed from other races, not humanity. By the way, we say the 13 heroes, but really, there were more. Only a mere 13 made it into the legends. The fight against the evil spirits united beings across racial boundaries, but people focused on humans. Probably they weren't willing to spread sagas featuring the exploits of other species, Everly remarked sarcastically. Then her demeanor changed entirely, and her narration turned nostalgic. The warrior wielding the whirlwind axe was chief warrior of the air giants. There was a royal family of elves that shared the characteristics of the ancestral elves. Kilinaram, the Black Knight, was also the original owner of our leader's sword. The Black Knight possessed the 4 great swords of darkness and was part demon. The 4 great swords of darkness? Asked Climb. One of the 13 heroes, the Black Knight, was said to possess 4 swords: Evil Sword, Humorous Demonic Sword, Kilinaram Kanker Sword, Korakwetava and Death Sword Sufis. Currently, one of them was in the possession of the leader of the Blue Roses, Lachius. The most powerful sword of darkness, created by condensing infinite shadows, demonic sword Kilinaram So, Is it true that if you unleash its power completely, it would radiate enough dark energy to swallow a country whole? Asked Gagarin. What in the world? Evelyn seemed confused. She had heard it from their leader. She said it when she was alone the other day. She was holding her right hand and saying something about how only a woman who serves the gods like her could control its full power. She went on and on. I never heard anything about that, Evelyn said, cocking her head, puzzled. But if the owner of the sword said so, it might be true. Then is it true that there's a dark Lacheus born from the mind of that darkness? What? Nah, she was mumbling that to herself at a different time. She didn't seem to realize I was there, so I listened in to see what was up. She was saying crazy stuff like, if you get careless, the black root of all darkness will rule your flesh and unleash the power of the demonic sword. I can say that it's entirely impossible. Some cursed items take over their owners' minds. It would be a massive pain in the neck if Lacheus was possessed, though. It seems like she wants to keep it a secret, but I bet if we ask her straight, she'll blush and tell us not to worry about it. As a priest who is supposed to break curses, she is probably embarrassed that we worry about her being cursed. Does that mean she is determined not to make us worry and is bottling it all up? I haven't seen anything like that happen since then, but do you remember? She started wearing those armor rings right after she got that sword. I thought they were just a fashion statement, but are you saying they might be magic sealing items or catalysts? Klein couldn't maintain his stoic mask any longer and furrowed his brow. From what he heard, it sounded like Lacheus might be falling under the control of an evil item. Thinking about where he just come from, his uneasiness grew. Is Princess Renna in danger? He seemed ready to fly out the door, but Evelyn held him back. Don't panic. It's not like anything going to happen this second. Even if she were about to lose herself to a dark power, it's not like it would happen before she realized what was going on. The fact that she hasn't told us about it probably means she thinks she can control it. She is mentally strong, right? But I had no idea that sword had such power. Should we tell Azus just in case? Asked Gagarin. Having to borrow the strength of a rival is somewhat unfavorable, but she is his niece, so yes, we should probably tell him. Okay, I guess we should do that right away. We have to figure out where he is first. Yes, we should be ready to support Lacheus at any moment. Plus, only adamantite ranks can stop other adamantite ranks. Oh, speaking of which, Gagarin, there is supposedly a third adamantite rank adventurer team now in Erantal. What? Really? This is the first I've heard of it. Did you hear about them this morning at the Adventurers Guild? No. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. Apparently they ray black. Black. There's red and blue, so I thought the next would be brown or green. Black is one of the colors used in the six gods' faith, so it's not really surprising. Perhaps next will be white. I'm not really a fan of the slain theocracy. There was that one time we really got into it with their secret unit guys, you know. Klein felt like he was hearing something terribly dangerous, but they ignored him and kept going. You don't like them, Gagarin. They were trying to kill me, but I agree with their policies. Or rather, the task they've set for themselves, the vow they made to protect humanity, isn't wrong from the human race's point of view. So it's okay to kill subhumans and elves who didn't even do anything wrong then. Vivid disgust appeared on Gagarin's face, and flames of intense anger burned in her eyes. Evelyn shrugged off the heat, directed her way. In this area, you have several human countries, the kingdom, the sacred kingdom, and the empire. But Gagarin, did you know that the farther you get from here, the fewer human majority countries you find? Subhumans, and other races superior to humans, are building nations. There are even some places where humans are slaves. One of the biggest reasons there aren't countries like that around here is because the slain theocracy has for years beaten back any subhumans on the rise. Gagarin quieted down and began to sulk. Well, yeah, subhumans are physically superior to humans. If they were to gather in one place and develop their civilization, there wouldn't be much humans could do at that point. If you're a human, you should appreciate what the theocracy is doing. Certainly, some of what they do is heartless, but there is no one serving humans more than them. Of course, whether I'd be able to say the same thing from the perspective of the unwanted minorities is another question. Also, there's a very good chance the slain theocracy created the model for adventurers' guilds. Seriously, who can say? The truth is unclear, but there's a good chance. The guild system appeared after the fight with the evil spirits, when humans were weak. The theocracy authorities were saving their strength, so they probably created the adventurer framework as assistance that they could offer without creating international conflict. A silence particular to a lull in conversation descended on the table.